Uhuru, brothers and sisters, comrades. This is Omali. I'm the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party and leader of the Uhuru movement and the International African Revolution. I want you to really please pay attention now. That you know much of what is happening inside this country is this discussion that's going on within, obviously within the US Congress, but it's spilling over throughout every medium that's available to the ruling class in this country and much of the world. And that is the fact that the House of Representatives, per the US Constitution, took to the Senate the impeachment demand for Donald Trump, the former president. And this indictment is something of impeachment. They would have to be resolved, but the Senate is the organization that would put the president on trial now that he has been impeached. And of course, what is necessary is for, I think, something like at least a majority of the Congress would have to vote to convict Trump, who is being charged with incitement of an insurrection, which is the closest thing you can come to in terms of doing a coup inside the United States, of the United States government. So this is something that has stolen all of the attention, sucked all of the air, more or less, out of the room. The ruling class in this country has done this dramatic, shown this dramatic footage of the people who are responsible from the US Congress of taking the impeachment documents over across the hall to the Senate for the trial. They've shown you that. You've heard all kinds of arguments, debates about whether it's good or bad for this to occur. Some people even quoting Biden, who talks about this a time for healing and unity, et cetera, and therefore it would be a problem if Trump were actually convicted in this impeachment trial. And then there are arguments that Trump is no longer president, so therefore impeachment should not consider him because the Constitution doesn't say anything about trying a former president, impeaching and trying a former president. Of course, the argument there seems to be that a guy can be the president, a woman can be the president of the United States and commit horrible acts at the very moment he or she is preparing to depart, and there's nothing that can be done about that. If there's any logic to that argument, it extends to that point. What the issue is, the question of convicting Trump has something that's dominated the discussion. Will the Republicans come over? And they're talking about how there's evidence that the Republicans are not going to cooperate and allow for this conviction to occur, foiling Biden, foiling people who from the House of Representatives and mostly party people who are members of the ruling class Democratic Party as opposed to the ruling class Republican Party. This is what's being talked about. And as you can see, our position on this question is really clear. That is, when I say our, I mean the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. Our position is, damn Trump, impeach the US. Because Trump is, of course, accused of having incited a mob of white people who he had called to a rally in Washington, D.C. He incited this mob of white people to actually attack the Capitol building, resulting in an actual siege and capture of that building, sections of that building, where we saw members of the Congress terrified, some of them later on breathlessly talking about how they thought they were going to be killed during this process. It was an extraordinary moment in history. Extraordinary not because of some threat as it is to the lives of those persons who were there in the Capitol. Extraordinary in terms of what it reveals about the death of a whole crisis that exist inside the whole capitalist system. And with the United States being the center of that system, even if it's shaken every day by forces like China, by other oppressed people around the world who are trying to take back our lives and freedom from this domination, it has been the center. And so the crisis is not just a US crisis. It's a crisis for the entire social system that we're talking about, this idea of what happened on January 6th. Now, as we saw, January 6th, the Capitol was attacked. Trump incited it, clearly incited it, and frightened congresspersons. And now the Congress has decided to impeach Trump, but it's not likely he's going to have, there's going to be enough votes in the Senate to make this happen. And people are saying, well, why wouldn't it happen in the Senate? Because those are persons of Congress whose lives were in danger too. In fact, some of the people who assaulted the Capitol were calling for killing Mike Pence, who is the vice president of the United States, or was at that time. So why would they hesitate doing that? And the fact of the matter, of course, is that we're looking at, as I said, a deep, serious crisis. And Trump did not put himself in office. Trump represented the deep sentiments of whole hordes of white people who live in this country and around the world. White people who grew to significance on the planet Earth as colonizers, as rapists and enslavers, who came to know themselves and have a sense of pride and dignity about themselves, whether they call themselves Americans or French or anything like that, as a consequence of what they were stealing from Africa, and as a consequence of what appeared to be their superiority. They must be superior because they're stealing all of this stuff from people all around the world, accumulating all the resources and capital, sucked it out of the lives and futures of the peoples around the world. And so there's this sense of identity that's deeply enshrined in white consciousness. And that's a normal thing, normal in the sense that every time you have a particular kind of political economy, you will have ideas that respond to the kind of political economy you have. And if it's an economy based on colonial slavery, then ideas in every way, the institutions, the universities, even the churches, the ideology, the culture reflects that kind of economic relationship, that kind of economic basis. And so white people have come to know themselves through conquest, through much of the world. And what's been happening is this crisis that we saw explode on January 6th is one that's been building up for some time now. Because the capitalist system itself, the whole system, not just in the United States, the whole system, because capitalism was born as a global economy. Didn't just start in Mississippi on a cotton plantation. It started as a global economy. And so it means it's a parasitic economy that did come from colonial slavery. But all of Europe was involved in colonial slavery, and the United States was the center of it because, in many ways, because it was the settler colony, the profoundly significant central settler colony in this hemisphere. So that's what we're looking at, a whole social system that came about through colonial slavery. It's a colonial system. And it is one that all the activity, economic and political activity that occurs in the United States, that occurs in Europe, rests upon this foundation of colonialism. It was founded off colonialism. It continues to exist from colonialism. And despite the fact that there are ongoing struggles from time to time between sectors of the ruling class about how to carry out the colonial mission, it continues to be a colonial economy. And what has happened in much of the world, and especially in the United States, is there's been this loss of white prestige that stems from the inability of the United States government. And I'm not just trying to say this is something central to just ordinary white people. I'm saying whole corporations, companies, trillions of dollars of resources revolve around this and contribute to the construction of imperial attitude that exists among white people. Generally speaking, that's the case. And as people around the world taking back our resources, this dominant white power is something that's being called into question. If that's called into question, then the value of whiteness itself is being called into question. Trump understood that. That's why he said, make America white again. He said, make America great again, but everybody understood that. And I hope the colonized peoples in this country and around the world understood that as well. So that's part of the crisis. And people are attacking politicians, white people are, for not doing more to protect the interests of white people. They don't say white people as such, but they're talking about the immigrants are a problem, the Black people are a problem, law and order necessary, anything to control the masses of peoples around the world. Attack Venezuela, that's all right. Attack Iran, that's all right. Anything that's breaking up this monopoly of white power is threatening, and it reverberates throughout the political system itself. And so you have mobs of white people who organize into stuff like QAnon. They got to have some explanation. People say, QAnon is crazy. How could somebody be involved in such a conspiracy theory? They got to have some explanation, and they cannot accept the explanation of the fact that history has made white power irrelevant. It has exposed the white power to the peoples around the world. It exposed the nature of the system itself, and peoples around the world are taking back our resources. It cannot say, it cannot admit, the white population, the white society is incapable of admitting that there's something fundamentally wrong, foul about the society that they have developed. So yes, let's say QAnon, that's a good reason why. Let's come up with all these other ridiculous kinds of things that we hear white people being able to unite with as a basis for attacking their government. Attacking their government because it is no longer effective in maintaining control of the rest of us. So that's what we're looking at. Now, I'm saying this, but I want you to come with me because you don't have to be scared. Because we in the African People's Socialist Party are not scared. We who are part of the Uhuru movement are not frightened. And I want you to know who we are, because I'm saying that I've got a program for you. I've got a program for you that should make it certain, make it clear to you that you don't have to be afraid, that this is a really critical moment. Because when you see this animal, this rapist entity, when you see this organization of colonizers, of enslavers, I'm talking about the US government itself. I'm talking about the government of Biden and Harris, just as it was the government of Trump and Obama and those who precede. I'm talking about the government of the pedophilic Thomas Jefferson that the liberals like to hold up as examples of the greatness of America, who helped to write the constitutions and things like that, who raped children, baby girls, African children from its inception. That's what we are talking about. This is the kind of government and the consciousness that was born from this relationship here. So this is the colonial government. And it doesn't matter who's in office. And it has proved that over and over again. So when we see this government in crisis, you don't cry when you see the plantation burning down. You don't cry when you see the slave master in trouble and the slave society and the slave organizations in trouble. You don't cry. And of course, I know that it's possible for many people to be afraid when you see this, because we have been conned into believing that we can't make it without them. We can't make it without their government. And this is where we are. So on the one hand, we are afraid of Trump so much that we vote for Biden and Harris. And now we are afraid, many people are afraid because of Trump might do right now. And so with the issue of impeachment, that's a frightening specter, and the possibility of the white people mob taking power, that's a frightening specter too. And I'm saying you don't have to be afraid that this crisis can be our benefit, because people can see now better than they've seen in many, many, many years. And I'm the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. And we're not just some kind of talking heads or something like that. We have built, over the last 50 years, we've built an incredible organization that should help us to go where we need to go. It will help us. This is the program. Because the US government is a colonial government, which means it sucks the bloods and resources. It's a power. It's a foreign and alien power that dominates the lives of African people. just like European imperialism does all around the world, sucking the resources from people around the world, fighting wars, killing people, destroying countries, just in order to keep getting those resources. And the center of that is right here inside the United States. So people who are frightened about these white people who are attacking the Capitol because of what it might mean for what they characterize as some kind of democracy need to remember what this government is, how it came into existence. And it has been the same way, whether it's been Republicans or Democrats that's been in power, and it will be the same way because it's a colonial government. It cannot function any other way. It cannot survive any other way. It has to be able to suck the blood and resources from Africans and peoples all around the world. That's what we're looking at. And you got to deal with that. And I know some people are afraid of that. That's why Harriet Tubman had to carry a gun, because people were afraid often of being free and being independent, and the responsibility that went with that, of being able necessarily taking care of ourselves and our own lives. We took care of the white man. We took care of Europeans all this time, and we were afraid to strike out on our own, to take care of ourselves. Too often that's the case. And of course, that's the kind of stuff that's pumped into our brains by the African petty bourgeoisie, these Africans who have become so self-alienated from ourselves and from themselves that they can only follow and only have confidence in the white ruling class, whether it calls itself the Democratic Party or something else like that. So this is the African People's Socialist Party. We were formed in 1972. And in that year, we organized, since that time, we have organized all around this world. And we've been doing it because that was also the time frame. The United States government was killing revolutionaries, including those in this country, Panthers, locking up members of the Republic of New Africa, attacking, hunting down forces like the Revolutionary Action Movement, like they were animals. This was the high tide of that kind of activity, where assassinations, mass jailings, mass killing of people like Lumumba, killing of Malcolm X, killing of Martin Luther King, overthrowing African governments on the continent of Africa. This is what America was doing. And so this party came into existence. And our objective, unlike some of the others, because the US government did more than just kill certain leaders and destroy organizations, they imposed other leaders on us. This is called counterinsurgency. So they put themselves in our communities in blackface. And they created a situation where they had been oppressing you and killing you because you were trying to vote. Now they open up the gates so that you can vote, but they've destroyed your organizations. They've killed many of the leaders, and they've destroyed the program that these leaders were trying to advance in order to make us free. So the only thing you can vote for is the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are the custodians. It is the custodians. I say it because, again, this is one ruling class functioning through two organizations. The Democrats and Republicans, they represent one ruling class. And they have a responsibility to themselves and to their class to maintain the domination of the world in order to continue to suck our resources, suck our blood, so that it can keep that ruling class rich and keep the white people in general, Europeans in general, living at such a high level so that it makes them active participants in the oppression of other peoples around the world, including Africans in this country. And that is something that is consolidated with a philosophy of colonialism. The colonial philosophy is what many people refer to as racism, or sometimes white supremacy, or something to that effect, which in and of themselves don't mean anything, but colonialism does. And this so-called racism, this sense of white superiority or white supremacy is simply a philosophy that has come from the nature of the system itself and adopted by, imposed on the majority of people around the world, and especially white people, because what it does is make them active and volunteer and sometimes very creative proponents carrying out of the colonial domination of Africans and other peoples around the world. That's what we talk about when this sense of imperial, this imperial kind of attitude that people refer to as racism. That's what it is that we're looking at. So it's the colonizer. But you can come with me and you don't have to be afraid. And I'm saying that what that means is that this is a party, the African People's Socialist Party, that created the African Socialist International. That means that we exist in various places around the world. I'm saying this because we have to take back our own power and stop relying on the white power, relying on the ruling class for what we need. And what we need is freedom more than anything else. And freedom is more than just some kind of abstract concept. It is the ability to construct our lives ourselves on our own terms, to control our own economic interests in our own hands, to be able to feed, clothe, and house yourself, to be able to create and recreate life on our own terms, and a society that's organized around that process. That's what freedom is. And so we've never had that. We didn't get it with the so-called Emancipation Proclamation that supposedly ended slavery. And we haven't had it since we've been in this country, or really since Europe put a foot on Africa with the intent and actually involved in capturing our resources and forcing African people to do something against our will. So this party is an international party, just like Garvey was an international party. And Garvey's movement, that's Marcus Garvey I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Universal Negro Improvement Associations and African Communities League. I'm talking about that movement, that organization, that man who put forth the slogan, Africa for Africans at home and abroad. All Africans. He was born in Jamaica and came to the United States. And there's some politics and Black philosophy that just sprung up recently inside this country would even deny Garvey any kind of status because he was born in Jamaica. He was born in Jamaica, and he organized African people all around the world, up to 11 million strong, under the slogan, Africa for Africans at home and abroad, because that was the attack. White people didn't come to Jamaica to attack us. They came to Africa and took us to Jamaica. White people didn't come to Mississippi to attack us. They came to Africa and took us from Mississippi to attack us. That was a part of the attack. So it's an all-African assault that was made on, and it made Europe rich, all of Europe rich at our expense. And so that's what we're having to contend with. We're not involved in a single struggle somewhere. When African brothers and sisters in Haiti made that incredibly significant revolution there, that concluded, I think, in 1804, when Africans succeeded in doing that. The whole imperial world organized against Haiti and imposed trade embargoes on Haiti to force Haiti to pay reparations to France. And because France was the slave-owning colonial master in Haiti, and made Haiti, Africans there, pay reparations to France, because France had lost its property, the Africans ourselves. What I'm pointing to is that all of the European powers, including the United States, ganged up on African people in Haiti because we're not involved in just some simple struggle in one single place. There's not going to be a Haitian revolution. There's not going to be a New Jersey revolution. The revolution is going to be global. It's the universal revolution that Marcus Garvey was looking for, and for that to occur, it has to have a universal capacity. It has to have an organizational capacity that sweeps the globe and builds a future and a life for ourselves. And I'm calling on you. I'm telling you that it's here. You don't have to go any place to look for it. You don't have to pay attention to hustlers who are trying to beat you out of your money or trying to trick you, this and that. This is no boogeyman abstract stuff we're talking about. We're talking about concretely on the ground. Just a few days ago, we initiated a worldwide series of regional conferences, Black Power summits. The African People's Socialist Party did that. And we had a summit in the Caribbean that included participants in the summit, organizers of the summit from the Bahamas, from Bermuda, from Guadeloupe, and participants from other places throughout the Bahamas where we are building. You are building. You must step forward and become a part of this movement to create the world that can be safe for African people, that we can be prosperous and we can live in dignity as human beings and end the ongoing humiliation that we've had to experience as a people for the last 400 or 500 years. We were in the Caribbean. We had the same, another regional conference that was in Europe. And it was organized primarily from members of our party in France and in the what they call the United Kingdom. And then there are other forces who are part of our movement throughout Europe and Sweden and Norway and various other places. And this was the Black Power Summit that we had. And this was what people are summing up and say how we move forward globally under the leadership of one particular party with a program. That's what I'm telling you, that you can join. You don't have to be afraid. And the people who were doing this in Europe were aware of what was happening with our people also in the Caribbean. And we had in Africa in particular, this is really powerful, because in Africa, we had this Black Power Summit, where we setting out to becoming a self-governing people once again, so that we don't have to care who gets impeached, who doesn't get impeached. What we can do is begin to construct our own life. That's what we've been doing in the African People's Socialist Party for nearly 50 years now. And this regional conference happened in Africa. And the activity was centered in what they call South Africa. And from South Africa, we reached out and pulled into this process Africans who are in Sierra Leone, Africans who are in Ghana, Africans who are in Tanzania, Africans who are in Uganda, Africans who are in Ivory Coast and Mali, and more throughout the continent of Africa, coming into the organizational embrace of the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party. We're taking our world back. We're taking our freedom back. And it's not going to be something that happens overnight, like it's that simple, that easy, but it has to start. And I'm giving you an opportunity to get on board to make this thing happen. And then, of course, within the United States, these regional conferences happen in the South and in the Midwest and in the Northwest. All of these conferences were designed to pull the whole African nation together in a common goal for self-government that we can have ourselves by negating the power and influence of imperialism, whether that's US, whether that's France, whether it's a combination of them all. But the fact is that the whole imperial white power system is in a state of decline. And the US is the sharpest reflection of that, because it's the headquarters of the system. And although it doesn't mean that our problems are over, it's not going to be over unless we organize. I mean, France, for example, lives off African blood and sweat and resources. I mean, it sucks the blood out of African people right now. Africa's starving because of French, because of US, because of various other forces in Africa taking our resources, while we are worrying about whether one sector of the white ruling class is going to get rid of another sector of the white ruling class in a process that they call impeachment conviction. We are a party that has created more than 50 different institutions, and some of them economic institutions throughout the US, and we're building the same thing in Africa right now as we have this discussion. So you don't have to be afraid. I'm telling you, come with me and join the future. And that future is one of freedom. That future is one of uhuru, which doesn't just mean freedom. It means freedoms in an African language called Swahili, Kiswahili. Come with me. And I'm telling you that this movement is overwhelming. It has already changed the course of history. And African people, when we stand up, we do that. We can be the determining factors in how the future is going to advance. And it's not just by any way it requires revolutionary organization, whose actions, whose program, whose activities don't simply stand out and speak out, but they are done to negate the power and the influence of the ruling class. We got two candidates running for office in St. Louis right now. And they have a damn good chance of winning. With your support, of course. We have to support those forces. And they're running in St. Louis for 2 aldermanic seats. And we're shaking up the system already, because St. Louis, just like the most of America, but even in some instances, even worse than other parts of the United States. Their government, their colonial government, their local colonial government does the same thing. It's there in order to keep the rich ruling class white people rich at our expense. And they also have help, just like all over the African world, with forces who we call neo-colonial. This is how white power operates in blackface in our communities. Sometimes we elect them, despite the fact that they don't do anything, promise anything really that's going to uplift our people and take us out of the grip of the jaws of this white power social system, this colonialism. We're fighting against colonialism. And when we run somebody for office, our objective is not only to win that office, but to win that office as part of a process of winning masses of African people to participating in ending the colonial domination, this domination by foreign and hostile entity that's called the United States government. Because the outcome that we're looking for is one that results in our liberation. So when we look at this issue of impeachment and trying Donald Trump for the crime of inciting an insurrection, are we suggesting that that's going to do anything to advance the interests of African people? Are we saying that we are so afraid of Donald Trump and the future that we would support indefinitely somebody like Biden, who wrote that crime bill that's responsible for something like 1 out of every 8 human beings in prison in the world being African in this country? The Biden who wrote the crime bill that's responsible for the criticism that you make of Donald Trump for executing these federal prisons on his way out the door. You say, oh, what a bloody guy this is. What a cruel guy this is. Look at him, he hates Black people so much. Look at him, he just killed this young African person. And of course, he's all right. But he did it with the bill that Biden did, working with the police, with the intention of this consequence, because he added 60 new categories of federal offenses that would lead to the death penalty. And those people that we're talking about, Trump just killed, Biden killed them. And Harris' role has always been, she came to political prominence as somebody who was locking up African people, first in the Oakland Bay Area in California, then as the chief cop in the state of California. And now what we have is Biden and his crime bill was then sending victims for Harris to prosecute. She was the chief prosecutor. And this is supposed to be our salvation? There is no salvation there. So this is my call to you. Come with me. We can be free. We can have our own lives. We can be self-governing. We can have our dignity back. We can end the hundreds of years of humiliation that's imposed on Africa and African people. We can get rid of this legacy of rape and murder and bloodshed that has been imposed on African people across the globe. We can express our hatred of that by winning our freedom from that. And we have to have the courage of joining the organization that has shown through history for nearly 50 years of carrying out the verdict that Marcus Garvey and those people who were members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League initiated more than 100 years ago. We can say that you killed Malcolm X and the government, the United States government did this, and I think it's important because nobody in the US government, and no president was ever threatened with impeachment for the work they did to murder Malcolm, for the work they did, Johnson, the Democrat, to overthrow Nkrumah, for the work they did, Kennedy and Eisenhower, to capture, butcher, and murder Lumumba. No impeachment there. They're not talking about impeaching Trump because he was doing something to overcome or overturn colonialism. They're attacking Trump because they are disappointed in how Trump carried out the colonial mission that the US government is designed to do. And so, and he unleashed all of those white people who have been discouraged and disappointed and in a state of despair because the value of whiteness is slipping away before their eyes as more and more people around the world fighting for freedom. But the Democratic Party is not some protector of our freedom. And so what I'm saying is the protector of our freedom is you, is me, is our own independent organization, the African People's Socialist Party. Not just any kind of party either, revolutionary party, not just any kind of revolutionary party, but a revolutionary party with the African working class at its helm. It is a vanguard party. It's the advanced detachment of the African Revolution, and there's a place for you. And we can continue moving forward to construct our own history, our own society, and the kind of government that's necessary to let us live in peace. So we say, damn Trump, indict the US. We say, damn Trump, and we are saying, impeach the US government. Impeach the US government for, first of all, setting down on this soil that they call America. And taking the lives and resources, the millions of indigenous people who were murdered in the process, destroyed much of the buffalo and what have you as a part of a warfare that we're making against the indigenous people here. Initiated chemical germ warfare, giving the indigenous people blankets that were infested with smallpox. That they raping 10-year-old little indigenous girls, butchering indigenous women, etc. And then locking them up even today in concentration camps called Indian reservations. Indict the US government. Did Trump do anything that's equal to that? Indict the US government. This is the government that they like to brag about. Jefferson buying from the French what they now call the Louisiana Territory that control something like something like 827,000 square miles that's west of the Mississippi River. That includes Missouri and other places as well. But they don't mention that when the U.S. bought made the Louisiana Purchase, there were human beings, the indigenous people who lived there. And that they set out on a mission to exterminate the indigenous people. That's what I'm saying, that we have to impeach the US. That's part of how the US got founded. And it got founded off the labor, the enslaved colonial labor of African people who worked like beasts to create this thing. And this is the foundation of the government that's talking about impeaching Trump. And so Trump is a pig, but he's an instrument of a colonial government. So we say, damn Trump, impeach the USA, impeach the US for the crimes that's committed against us and other people. Impeach it because of what it did to Iran in 1953. You know, they have this contest, they tell me how they got to punish Iran. Well, in 1953, the United States government intelligence organization overthrew the elected government of Mohammed Mossadegh and put their guy in power. In 1954, the United States government overthrew the government of Guatemala and put their guy in power. This whole concept, the so-called banana republic that the United States did to put these major fruit corporations all over the Americas. The United States did that. What we got to impeach the United States. Impeach the United States for what it did in terms of Congo, butchering Patrice Lumumba because he stood up for Black people. They said the guy's crazy. They actually met with Lumumba, and leaders of the United States government said he's crazy because he won't make a deal. And they killed him. And they used Africans to participate in that. They invaded the Dominican Republic in 1961, Vietnam, of course, and the hundreds of thousands of people in Vietnam who died there. Republicans, Democratic Party, it's a colonial entity, and it's determined to keep the whole world living under colonial domination. And guess what? They'll do it with your help, Black people. Yes, they'll put a Kamala Harris in place. Look at what they've done. So they got Kamala Harris. And they said, wow, she's Indian African. They got a person from the indigenous that they put over the Interior, the Department of Interior here. That's the department that was there in order to keep control of the indigenous population, the so-called Indians. So that's even macro neo-colonialism. So they got somebody who looks like them to carry out the policies of the colonialism. The U.S. was involved in Brazil and the dictatorship that emerged there, in Chile in 1973, They killed Malcolm, they killed King. And I just want to say, finally, I'm not worried about an impeachment of a trial on Trump, because our party in 1982 in Brooklyn, New York, in November 13 and 14, put the United States government itself on trial. Black people, for the first time in history, put the United States government itself on trial. This was on the first World Tribunal on Reparations for Black people that happened in this country, and made the reparations issue a household word. That's where it came from. So the US was indicted, the impeachment happened, we put it on trial with international jurors using international law as the basis for doing it. So I'm not waiting for an impeachment of Trump. We've already impeached the colonial power that dominates African people and the peoples around the world. You should join with us, and you should come also to the plenary that we're having, a major international plenary. Black people from all the places that I've just suggested in Africa, the Caribbean, throughout the United States and Europe will be coming together under the slogan, African workers of the world, unite and organize. That's February 6th. You should join that. You should join this movement. You should step forward and with the determination to take charge of our own lives. And to get more about this and who the party is, if you don't know already, go to APSP Uhuru, APSP Uhuru.org. Brothers and sisters, don't panic, don't despair. We are winning.